Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast that makes ancient wisdom relevant today. I'm your host, Raghunath, with co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show on podcast number 1357.
Wow.
I think we might even pass Joe Rogan at this point. I'm not positive. We got a lot of podcasts under our belt.
He's probably got more than that, I think, huh?
Well, he doesn't do it every day. He does a
But
lot,
still.
though. What the hell did shit?
You
Take
okay?
this away.
What are you, this is like day 4 without Mary. He's starting to lose it.
So it's giving me teeth.
He's yelling at people.
Get out of here, Maya.
Oh,
How are you? How are you? It's well. Welcome, everybody.
you see, you did it again, Raghunath. If you're
How
going
are
to
you?
ask me how I am, then you better wait for me to tell you. You don't have to ask, by the
I
way.
live in a world where everybody's muted except me. I'm not asking for conversation. I'm just asking to talk.
But you don't have to ask if you want to just talk.
They're
Go for it.
they're what do you call those questions that don't need an answer?
Well, usually people pause a little bit and they accept even a superficial
Pretty good.
good.
Pretty good. Go on. Continue
Yeah,
on.
exactly. A little something like that.
Rhetorical questions. They're rhetorical. When I say "How are you?" you're not supposed to answer that. No, we're here
But
for
even
Q&A
rhetorical
day.
questions receive an answer.
No, they don't.
Yeah, and on some level, once they receive an answer. Right?
Rhetorical questions.
Is that by definition they don't have an answer?
Linda, come on. You're educated. You're corporate. Tell us. Rhetorical questions, I say. A rhetorical question is, what is your head full of cheese? That's a rhetorical
Maybe that-
question.
Okay,
No,
well
I
then
don't
that's
think
not
it's
a
full of cheese.
rhetorical question.
That's-
Anyway, whatever.
okay.
It's just not smooth, man. Come on, Hey, how you doing today? Anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's like, excuse
How are you doing? You're right. I should pause. You know what? I've
Little
got my
pause,
brain
right.
thinking of what I'm supposed to say next. I just say it
Just
because
slow
you
it
take,
down.
and you're so slow.
No, I'm not slow, Raghunath. I'm not.
You're so
I'm
slow.
right-
When I
I'm
say
right
"How
here.
are you?" you don't give me
I'm
an
ready to
answer.
go.
Let me think how I am.
All right.
There's a lot of factors.
Oh, you see, a rhetorical question is a question asked in order to create a dramatic effect or to make a
What
point.
is your head full of cheese?
Or to make a point. But you weren't doing that when you say, how you
How's
doing?
it going, man?
That's
Anyway,
not
this is what's
making a
going on.
dramatic effect or
was
establishing
dramatic.
a point. All right. You see, that's where you go into your 4-year-old kind of thing, Raghunath, and you just say, that was dramatic. No, it wasn't dramatic. Look at you. You're stunned that I'm calling you out.
Call me a 4-year-old?
Yeah, you behave like a
Vaishnava?
4-year-old. You behave like a 4. You do it all the time. It's cool, though. I love you anyway.
It's cool, though.
All right, let's get this thing going right now.
Anyway,
Let's head
welcome
it-
to the show,
head over
everybody.
to Linda.
This is Q&A day. This is a day where people write in their questions. We try our best to answer them. I'm Raghunath. I'm 4 years old today, and I'm going to try my best to give a 4-year-old answer for all of your questions. Any announcements? Miss Linda, who's filling in for Miss Mara, who's in Africa at a destination wedding.
Yes, and today's the wedding, so I'm
I
sure
know.
she's having a great time today.
Mara is like so simple, and they they doll up her hair, doll up her face,
It's probably the safest day of the trip for her.
She's super
She's
exhausted.
been having a blast, though.
Yeah,
It's
she's
been
having a
great to
blast, but
see
she
her
was
pictures.
exhausted.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, announcements. We've got a Bhakti Recovery meeting at 9:30 a.m. this morning. And we've also got a Bhakti Recovery meeting at 1 p.m. today.
Nice.
And then Wisdom of the Sages will be at the beautiful Govardhan Eco Village for our Light on Wisdom training in January. It's January 12th through 24th. There's a lot going on in January, actually. 200 and 300 hour yoga teacher training, through Super Soul Yoga, also Kirtan and Mridanga Academy, and Light on Wisdom Academy. And nobody does India in January like Wisdom of the Sages. So there's a lot of options out there, but Wisdom of the Sages does it the best. So go to wisdomofthesages.com and register.
You know, it's
Go
like
around Eco Village.
yeah, it's like you want to learn French. Well, you can take an online course and you get do about an hour and a half a day for about 6 years. You get pretty good at French. Or you could just go to Paris and learn it pretty quickly, like get thrown right into it. It's like a teacher training where you're like so immersed in it, the whole thing, because part of our Vedic education and the wisdom training as well, it's not just like we're studying books. You actually have to live the culture, and exponentially more than sitting down and even reading a chapter of the Bhagavad Gita every day. You're like immersed in the culture of bhakti, the culture of yoga, the culture of kirtan. And that's why people find it so transformational. What do you think
All
about
right.
that analogy, huh?
It's great.
France, Paris, go to Paris, learn it.
Okay. Immersion is what you're talking about.
You immerse yourself like an immersion blender.
Okay.
All right.
We ready to get into the questions today, Ragnar?
Oh, yeah, we got some good questions.
Okay, I'm going to read you the first question. This one's aimed at you specifically.
It's aimed at me.
It's asked of you.
Oh, it's asked of me. Okay, that's different.
Okay. All right.
Aimed at means like they're coming after me.
Well, it's being
Directed
it's coming in
towards
your
me.
direction. Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
So
Something
this is an anonymous question. You ready? This is a heavy question, Ragnar.
okay.
Our anonymous writer writes, I know you went, speaking to you, Raghunath, I know you went through a hard time with divorce a while ago. And I recently found out 2 weeks before my wedding that my partner was...
You don't even have to go further. Wow, this is gonna be heavy. Go ahead.
Okay. I recently found out 2 weeks before my wedding, my partner was cheating on me.
Horrible.
It led to a very traumatic breakup. And I
hate
just want to ask you how you got through it. How did you come out the other side? Because this is the hardest thing I've had to deal with, and I've never experienced heartbreak like this before. Any advice would be so welcome. Then the writer continues, this is also part of the backup story. So here's the backup story.
All right.
As a little backstory, I was with him for 12 years. He suffered with drug addiction once, and I found out and I left. Then he got into recovery and got clean, and we got back together. He even started chanting as part of his meditation, and we were great as far as I knew.
Mm.
And then he cheated. I found out, and he denied it at first. It made me feel like I was crazy,
Yeah.
and then he finally admitted it. So basically, I've gone away from the relationship with nothing. I've had to move back in with my parents and sister. And I had no savings. I lived in his house, so had no ownership. So in a way, Krishna has taken a lot away from me. Right? It's not even just the person in the marriage, it's the home and everything. I'm struggling to let go. He said to me, I would find it hard to find someone who did all that he did for me, and that stuck in my mind. All of that might not be relevant, but I just want to know how I get through this. Thank you so much. Help, Raghunath.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Very, very painful to hear. How many people, when they first heard that first sentence, was like, I hate this guy. I hate. And if I was your older brother, I would kick this guy's ass. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And this is it directs us that directs me to my sort of carnal nature. I want war. Carnal. And do with my bodily instinct wants. I want to fight this guy. I want to crush this guy. I want to get revenge on this guy. And so the best advice I got from Radhanath Swami was during a split up, even if it's amicable, this is the complete opposite of amicable, is betrayal. It's like the heart is betrayed. It's devastating. I think a lot of people can relate with this question because we've all been hurt. Maharaj said to me, go through this as quickly as you can without resentment, without spite, and without revenge.
Without resentment,
Spite and revenge.
without spite, and without revenge. Okay.
And I naturally go right to resentment, spite,
Can I
right,
have at
and
least
revenge.
one?
Like what? That seems like the most natural thing. It's like, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. I'm not like hungry. I'm hungry. I'm gonna fast. So it's like, really? I can't do those things? If any time there is a time to do that, I was about to get married. I hired the photographer. I've arranged for the chairs and the table settings and the napkins, and I find out 2 weeks before that, like, I don't even know who this person is. It seems like you get a pass on can't resent, can't have spite, can't seek revenge. It seems like you should get a pass on that. Unfortunately, this is a spiritual podcast, and part of our spiritual life means we have to take care of our mental health. And there is nothing, I'm not even speaking for you, I'm just speaking for me. There's nothing that I can do in my life to get back what was taken. We can't get back what was taken. And what was taken from you was this idea of a nice, romantic, healthy, strong seed of a relationship that could fruit unto family and children, etc. And that was just destroyed. There's nothing he can do to take that back. That happened. And as devotees, when we want to move towards revenge or spite or calling them out or getting on the, I don't know if you've ever seen that show, Cheaters, or like there's Instagram accounts where like, he's going to confront the cheater right now. And it seems like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to put you on Instagram cheating. It's not going to help. That is not going to help the person who's been hurt or betrayed. We have to immediately let go of that resentment, let go of the revenge, let go of the spite, because living in that mind will torture us forever.
Let me ask you a question, Rogan. Or
Yeah.
I'm really just repeating her
Yeah.
question. She's saying, I want to ask how you got through it. So I think what you're giving now is incredibly valuable advice, but it may kind of like the mind goes through loops. It's not just easy to let that go, but are there practical things that you did to get through it? You know, just like how you filled your time and
Sure.
so on.
Well, I noticed that the body did keep score. And even during when I thought was like, well, I'm going to go out and just spread the holy name. And I spent a year of, after a split up, we sort of had a amicable split up, but that doesn't mean we're not affected, even if it's amicable. Because, you know, you have the destruction of a family unit, and that's devastating for a human being. And so I thought the best way to deal with it was, you go out and you do what I do. I speak, I read from the Bhagavatam, I do the wisdom of the sages every day, I study the Bhagavatam. But I found that even after a year, although I presented very well, I was suffering from extreme anxiety. And that anxiety was based on what's going to happen to my kids, what's going to happen to my business, what's going to happen to my family, what's going to happen, what is going to happen to me, what's going to happen to my home. And these are just like very real things that people going through a split up face. So I had to just do a little bit of, a little bit of self-care, which included, just not just being so public, but actually privately reading, privately journaling, pranayama, yoga, walking in the forest, contemplating what's going on, but the whole time using the directions of those: no resentment, no spite, and no revenge. Now, a big thing of going forward was telling my story of woe. That this is a big thing, because I can't move forward if I keep reinforcing my truth of, this is how I was hurt. This is what he did to me. This is how, and by not seeing either my part or God's part in it. See, I have an idea of what the pie of wrongness was, and it's generally 99% their problem, their fault, and maybe that little sliver of the pie was my contribution to how things went wrong. It generally is not the way the pie is actually cut up, and I just see things from my perspective. So a big part, if I want to move forward in future relationships and to have just peace of mind, is to say, well, what could I have done differently? What did I what were the red flags I did not see because I had rose-colored glasses? And when I start, the problem is when I start taking responsibility, I can't tell my story of woe any longer. The more I tell my story of woe, this happened to me, Linda, this happened to me, Kastuba, this happened to me, Jamie Step Dojo, this happened to me, Martine, all these things happen to me. What it does, it makes my story concrete. It makes it like stone. It makes it like the absolute truth, when in reality, it's the partial truth. And I do have some responsibility. And if I don't own that responsibility and I just tell my story of woe, I will smuggle my shortcomings into my future relationships. Instead of learning from my shortcomings, I will smuggle them forward. Huh?
Isn't it possible that this person didn't have any ownership in that? Like they got cheated on and they didn't do anything wrong?
Oftentimes, that's why they have like coda meetings for the alcoholics, because there is a responsibility in the person who. Oftentimes, people know about cheating, but they just don't want to believe it. I'm not saying she does, but it's good to do some hard introspection. I've dealt with people who've been in relationship with people who are addicts for like 10 years, and they were just like, I will not accept that they're addicts. And they'll try to bail them out of their addiction. Is a classic codependence. I'm not saying this is her, but it's worth analyzing, because if you have that people-pleasing nature to begin with, then you shut down your intuition on so many levels. I'm saying it's worth it to go forward to at least, and maybe you do have maybe you do have, and let's go with that. Maybe it's 100% their fault. The next question is, what does God want me to get out of this? What can I learn? How is this not putting me in bondage and ruining me, but how is this liberating me? And those are good questions to ask. What is this going to give me now? And oftentimes, when everything gets taken away, that's a really great time to reach out to God. If not, maybe that's the highlight. Times when things are working out smooth, it's the last time I'm thinking about God's doing this for me. Usually I've got my life in control. I'm in control. Matter of fact, as devotees, we sort of glorify being a little destitute. She's like, I'm moving in with my parents and my sister, and I'm a little broke right now. We glorify that destitution because we see, now I'm dependent on you, Krishna. And now comes those very, very heartfelt prayers of, oh, my Lord, I know perhaps I had some responsibility in this. Perhaps I was blinded by affection. Perhaps I was naive, but here I am. What would you like from me now? I'm putting myself at your feet. What would you like from me? Please let me shut my anger down for a moment so I can hear your whisper, or direct me in a very loud way. That's one thing. That's the divine way to look at it. The next thing would be, take a year off. Don't, because this is where people really go bad, is they just jump into another relationship because there's nothing better than masking your emotions with a new romance. Take a year off and just think. And then after a month, you're going to find, oh, I met this guy. This guy is great. That's not the great guy. Go for a year of just introspection, journaling, finding responsibility, calling to Krishna for direction, doing some self-searching, and then Krishna will send you the right guy.
Or maybe not.
Or maybe not. Or Krishna will
Maybe
put you in the
not.
right situation. Let's face it. You're about to like bond with this guy forever, and he lived a completely second life. Thank God.
Well, maybe he just had one incident. We don't know he was leading a completely second life.
Well, he was a previous addict. I don't know, but his track record doesn't sound great. And he was about to get married, and he was having an affair.
Well, he
I'm not.
cheated.
If I was hiring, I would not have that resume. Would not look so good.
I'm just saying we don't know that he was having a extended affair or anything like that.
We
just know
don't
he
know,
cheated.
but it may be important for her to examine her picker. Do you have a broken picker?
All right. She was with this guy for 12 years. So,
I understand.
so it's
Does
not,
she
it
have a
would be
broken-
hard. It may. We should have to go back a long way to get into her picker record. But I suppose.
I think it's important in any situation like this, where you're dealing with a person in recovery. You're dealing. I mean, all the clues she gave. He had an affair right before the wedding, and denied it. Like he's going to go into a wedding, he's going to go married, and he's going to keep that one secret as the foundation of their love. Come on.
Okay. All right.
I think it's always safe to say when things are going south or sour, we should examine, is my picker broken? I think these are not like holding her to like, oh, now I'm totally screwed up. It's important to find out where I have some responsibility in this as well,
All right, but
to move forward.
I'm
Maybe she
not
had no
saying they shouldn't. But
responsibility.
yeah, from what we're reading, for all we know, this is actually a really nice guy. You know, he had some trouble with addiction, but that doesn't mean he's not a good person. And he cheated one time. We don't know that he was living a second life or he was, thoroughly dishonest.
Cheating one time and lying about it is dishonest.
No, no
Thoroughly
doubt, no doubt. But I'm
thoroughly
saying it doesn't mean that
dishonest.
she's got a terrible picker or
It doesn't
she's.
mean that. I'm saying
Yeah.
examine that.
Okay.
Examine that. And I tell you, if I was her father, I'd say get rid of this guy for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't be as lenient as you are. If I
I'm
was
not being lenient.
if I was her dad or her.
I'm not
her
being lenient
older
at
brother.
all. I'm not saying anything about what to do, but I don't want to read into it. That's my point.
So anyway, how to get over it and how to work through it and how to move forward with it. It seems safe to go to revenge and spite and resentment. Don't go there. Move forward. See Krishna's hand in everything,
Okay.
even in what appears as tragedy. But we all know now this isn't tragic. This is a blessing. You were released before you step in that like elephant pit where it seems safe and then you just fall into a pit. You've been saved. You've been saved. Thank God. And then you want to really get rid of resentment and pray for this person's deep spiritual connection.
Okay. Thank you, Raghunath.
Thank you. I'm so sorry you're going through that, Prabhu. Not you, Prabhu. Her, Prabhu.
Yeah.
But if anyone
Very
felt
hard.
betrayal like
Very
this-
hard.
Oh my God.
12 years invested.
I don't even want to get into it, but there was a time that my heart was hurt so bad. I thought I was going to lose my mind.
Mm.
I thought I was going to lose my mind.
But without going to a big long thing,
Yeah.
more than anything, what helped you not lose your mind?
Truthfully, taking shelter of devotees and asking similar questions what she asked.
Okay. Then she's on the right track.
Yeah. Sometimes because it was at another time where I couldn't get out of the like I was going to have to actually leave. And Radha Swami gave him good advice. He said sometimes when you're unsure, you just have to stay in it. When there's nothing super obvious, or sometimes you can't just get out of a relationship, even when things are really bad. And so he gave me this advice. He said, in my life, I went through a very, very tough time. I said, how'd you deal with it? And he explained the whole situation.
Mm.
And he said, you know what I did? I waited.
Hmm.
I waited till it became very,
Clear.
very obvious what I was supposed to do. I was like, okay, I got little children involved and I'm not sure what I should do. And he said, well, you just wait. I go, well, how long did you wait for? He goes, I waited for 10 years. I'm like,
So
10
long.
years? I was like, I thought you meant like 40 minutes. Okay, I've got 40 minutes are gone now. Now what? He said, I waited 10
years.
years before you got the answer. And you know
Ooh.
what? In retrospect, I waited like 13.
Mm.
Because sometimes we don't want to make hasty choices. We want to actually fully, because when we make hasty choices, we're not doing it on Krishna's direction often. We're doing it on an impulse. And that's usually never a great outcome, impulse choices.
Okay. Okay, Raghunath, we have more questions to answer today.
All right, my friend.
Thank you for that. You want to read one?
Yep. This is
Hit it.
from Sherry Yannick.
No, it's not.
It's from Sherry?
No.
Oh, it's from Chris.
No.
What the heck? Did I just scroll? It's from Anonymous?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Forget those other names I just mentioned. This is not from Sherry, okay? Right now. I'm just telling you.
I hope you're not about to read the one that we just read.
No. This is in my several-year journey through Bhakti.
Okay, here we go.
I've come across a few devotees who espouse a belief that Prabhupada was the last devotee that could be a teacher or initiate people. Yeah, this is
I think, or to initiate people.
To initiate
certainly others can be teachers.
Yeah. It seems to fly in the face of the belief in disciplic succession that is referenced in the Bhagavad Gita, all the way down to the great teachers in our lineage in over the last several hundred years. I'm a little confused. Has something changed with the disappearance of Prabhupada? Is there something mentioned in his teachings or the teachings of his teachers that ends that disciplic succession? What am I missing? Oh, this is a great question, Kostuba. This is a thing. And as you get into Bhakti, especially within this movement where Prabhupada was such a dynamic acharya who spread the teachings, Vedic culture throughout the entire world. And then he left the planet right away. And almost like a parent dies, so to speak, but a bunch of children are wandering around. What do I do without my parent? And he left, but all he left was these books. Some people are like, you don't need a guru anymore. We have his books. So, Kostuba, I'd love to hear your answer for this.
All right. I'd like to hear your thoughts
Prabhupada
as
left
well.
a bunch of basically young, new devotees to run an international society. And some of them couldn't handle the pressure of fame and worship, becoming a guru. And so certain people they lost faith in everything and said, you know what? This is nonsense. I'm out of here. We're going to do our own thing where Prabhupada's the guru. And that's it, boss. No more.
Well, they're claiming that they have. First of all, let's step back for a second and say that our whole thing when it comes to the practice of Krishna Bhakti is that this is a lineage of Bhakti Vedanta, right? It's practiced the way that Vedanta has been practiced, going back to its beginning. The way that it's written in these timeless texts is that it's something that's handed down from guru to disciple. That disciple becomes a guru and hands it down to the next disciple. That disciple becomes a guru and hands it down to the next disciple. And that goes on. We say that it's been going on forever, right? It's like, that's the way that Bhakti is practiced. That's the way it's taught and that's the way it's practiced. Their claim is that Prabhupada changed that because he's so influential and empowered and realized that he has the authority to change that. It's a very, very bold claim. And I'll say in my opinion, but just very objectively, it's not a well-founded claim. It's resting on it's like taking this incredible heavy weight and resting it on like a tiny little pin, The way that they explain it is that there was historically, as Srila Prabhupada got older, in the last year of his life, it was 4 months or so before he passed away, that he had written a letter. Now, there's different, some weeks back, I don't think you were here, Raghunath. I think it was when you were traveling to Italy. But we interviewed Brigupad Prabhu, who had written a book on the Guru and Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And we discussed that, there are different models of gurus. Sometimes a guru is like a person in a village, like a married person in a village that's got like 10 disciples, And then there's like kind of like this idea of like the Jagat Guru, this person that travels widely and has thousands and thousands. That's Srila Prabhupada, right? He had thousands of disciples, and he was constantly moving, constantly traveling. And so as he started to have more and more disciples, and he was always on the run, you might be in a place in the world where you're never even going to see him again. But you have complete faith. You're hearing from his disciples. You're reading his books. You're entirely inspired by him, and you wish to become his disciple. And what would happen then is usually like the temple leaders, having examined your character and your sincerity, would reach out to Srila Prabhupada wherever he was in the world and saying, hey, we have 10 people here that want to become your disciples. And rather than wait for him to come through that area of the world again, which he might not even do, then Prabhupada would say, okay, the leaders in that place can on my behalf perform the rituals of the ceremony of the initiation. So those temple leaders would do the things that are normally the guru do himself, like chant on the beads that are given to the initiate, give the person a name. They would usually suggest the name. Perform the actual ceremony and perform the actual ritual when it's done. And so those temple leaders would write to Srila Prabhupada, okay, we feel that these people are qualified to become your disciples. And then they would write to Prabhupada. Prabhupada would say, okay, I accept them. And now you perform the rituals, you chant on the beads. They would suggest the name, he would accept that name. And that process was going on for quite some time. Now what happened was what these, I'll call them literally, objectively, they're conspiracy theorists, right? They have a theory of a conspiracy that took place where they say that there was a letter that Prabhupada wrote where he was very old now. He was 4 months from passing away. And he couldn't travel. And it seemed like it was becoming clear he's entering the final months of his life. And so on his order, one of his disciples wrote a letter that he signed that said, Prabhupada has instructed us that there's going to be a new method now. Or let me put it this way, that there's going to be an adjustment to this method. And essentially the adjustment was, in the past, the temple leaders would write to Prabhupada and say, we suggest this person, and Prabhupada would say, I accept them. Now Prabhupada was giving them the full authority to accept them themselves on his behalf. So the idea was they wouldn't even have to ask Srila Prabhupada if he accepts them. Prabhupada was saying, I trust these 11 people. He named 11 people. I trust them. They can do it all. You just send us their names so that we keep track of them. But they don't even have to turn to me and ask me if I accept them. I accept them based on their acceptance. And within that letter, there was one word, and it said, henceforth, right? This is the way we'll be doing things henceforth. Prabhupada didn't even write that word. That was written by one of Prabhupada's disciples who composed the letter.
Right.
Prabhupada signed the letter, authorized the letter. But what they're saying was that when he said henceforth, he never changed it. So they're saying he gave a model wherein other people perform the rituals, but they do it on his behalf and they remain Srila Prabhupada's disciples. And then he passed away 4 months later and he never took that back. Now, what that means is that Srila Prabhupada did something incredibly drastic and different than it had ever been done in the history of these bhakti lineages. And that's completely against everything that he wrote in his volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of books of teachings. So far more reasonable approach is to understand that this letter, not written by Srila Prabhupada, used a colloquialism where it said henceforth. If you wanted to get real specific, it should have said henceforth until Prabhupada dies. This is the way that we're going to do things.
Hmm.
But that would have been in poor taste, and it was nobody was thinking that anyone could possibly misinterpret this. So this is the way we're doing it from here on out. And even if you want to get really technical and say it said henceforth, well, then you'd have to say, well, okay, henceforth. In other words, they're saying let's be incredibly literal in how we interpret this, even though it goes against everything that he ever taught. But if you want to get so literal, then he appointed 11 people to play that role. What happens once those 11 people die? Then there's nothing left. So it's kind of I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's silly. And I believe what you were saying is, it's an emotional response because some of those gurus who initiated disciples going forward had so many problems, and they're saying this is evidence that they're not following that order, and so therefore the whole thing is being disrupted. So if you go I'll say this, I've met some people, this we call it like the Ritvik philosophy, right? Because the word Ritvik, it's a word that refers to a priest who does a ritual on behalf of another, right? And so the idea is that these people aren't actually gurus themselves. They're just performing a ritual. And from here on out, for the rest of history, these people will be, whatever initiates come historically in this line will be direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada rather than grand disciples or great-grand disciples like that. I've met people that subscribe to this idea that are really sweet, wonderful people. And I've also met people that are the most wild conspiracy theorists that I've ever met.
Not just conspiracy theorists,
but I was going to take it one step further and say some of the most bitter-hearted, downright offensive people. It's perfect for them. It's all they need to point the finger and create the conspiracy and say, look at these people that did this horrible
conspiracy, because oftentimes we find, especially today, that a lot of these conspiracy theories.
Well, no, but it is a conspiracy. I'm just saying it. I'm using the word as it's meant to be used. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a theory of a conspiracy. Now, that doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it's definitely a conspiracy theory. And I find that the people that accept it usually accept every other conspiracy theory that exists. It's like they have a mind that's
and I accept a lot of conspiracy theories.
Okay. So.
Can I jump in with a point here?
Yeah.
What I find, and I'm not going to even look at the vast amount of spiritual shastra. I want to tell you my personal experiences as I've met devotees in my life. I've changed. I've watched myself grow. I've watched myself become a better person, more regulated, more sense-controlled, more God conscious. I treat myself better. I treat other people better. I've actually witnessed radical change in my life. And I'm suspecting it'll continue to the amount of this info and lifestyle that I imbibe. It's a living, growing organism, my bhakti, And so what makes me think that I won't become a pure devotee one day? Now, we never like to think, well, I'll be a pure devotee. But if this is really working, I will also become a great soul. That's what my hopes is. And maybe not in this life, but maybe in my next life. Maybe if I'm very focused, maybe tomorrow. But the idea is that this stuff works. We don't just get it initiated and then we say stagnant. Like you're not planting a seed. We're planting seeds, not marbles. We grow immediately. And the idea that this Jagat Guru, this Srila Prabhupada, can't make the seed grow into pure devotees, isn't that what the guru is supposed to do? The guru's not thinking, well, I'm just going to stay a pure devotee. You guys stay down there in the basement. No, the guru's always thinking, how can I make these devotees become pure devotees and then take this and further it with everybody else?
Become qualified gurus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That just makes sense. And I'm seeing it happen in my life and the lives of friends and students, etc., watching them grow. And I know that people that aren't necessarily liberated souls, but great people dedicated to bhakti have changed my life too. So Krishna is working through everybody. Even newer devotees. Krishna works through new devotees to spread the holy name and uplift people.
You probably, Raghunath, your point here is really pertinent. I just want to add a little something to it, and there's a couple other things more that I'd like to read about this.
Spice it up, polish it.
Well, not polish it, not spice, just extend it. You have similar arguments coming from within the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage. Like sometimes they say this particular lineage that we're part of, it's not valid because within the links of the chain that we have, some of the gurus, some of the relationships between guru and disciple were not diksha initiations. They were actually shiksha relationships, right? They were not done through the formal ritual, but they were a teacher that was just sharing the teachings. Now, our belief is that it's those teachings that are the sacred thing that's being passed through the sampradaya. So it doesn't matter if you're initiated by that person or not. But the real thing is, as you were saying, it's kind of like looking at a tree that's giving fruits and saying that tree's not alive.
It's not alive.
We know it's alive because it's giving fruits.
It's just like common sense. I don't even feel like we have to argue about this stuff. Like, take off your these crazy blinders you have and just see, what are you growing in your bhakti?
Yeah.
Period. But are you getting it from other people? Is it coming from Prabhupada? Yes. And is it coming from people who came before Prabhupada? Yes. We give all credit to Guru, but you give credit to the Guru's Guru as well, and the Guru as well. It doesn't diminish Prabhupada. Prabhupada was an acharya that spread this all over the world, and we worship him and love him and appreciate him for that.
Now, here's what I just want to really emphasize. Let's take this on to the really rational level. I'm going to read one excerpt of a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote. This was written to a disciple named Tushta Krishna in 1975. And he writes this. He says, keep trained up very rigidly, and then you are bona fide guru. Right? He didn't say you have, he said you're well trained rigidly, you're following, you're a true follower of this path. Then you're a bona fide guru. And he said, and you can accept disciples on the same principle. Because I'm following, I can accept the disciples and teach them how to follow. That's
good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. That's the
well,
mic drop right
it goes
there.
even more. He goes, but as a matter of etiquette, it is the custom that during the lifetime of your spiritual master, you bring the prospective disciples to him. And in his absence or disappearance, you can accept disciples without limitation. Then he says this is the law of disciplic succession. I want to see my disciples become bona fide spiritual masters and spread Krishna consciousness very widely. That will make me and Krishna very happy. Now, this is just one example.
That ends the whole conversation.
It should, but they're going to say that, no, that letter came after this letter, so he changed it. But here's my point. Srila Prabhupada said that I haven't done anything special. The only thing is that I've never changed anything, right? He would speak like that. I'm just a representative, and I never changed anything. This was his whole legacy, that he presented the lineage of Krishna Bhakti in a way that people could understand it and access it without changing it. And so to think that he would dramatically change it within the last 4 months of his life, if he were going to do that, he wouldn't it wouldn't all rest on one tiny little fragile linchpin of the word henceforward in a letter that was hardly anybody would ever read. He would have said, everybody, we're changing everything now. You know, everything that I said before, it has been reconsidered, and I want everyone to understand that we're taking on a whole new method of disciplic succession that will go on indefinitely into the centuries from here on forward. That's what he would have done if he was going to make such a drastic change. That's just rational thinking. To think that he changed everything on the basis of one small little colloquialism sitting in a letter is absurd. And if you want to, and again, if you want to take it that literally, then you have to accept that the 11 people that he appointed to do that were the only people that he ever appointed to do that. And when they die, the whole disciplic succession is finished. You know, so that's why I say, you know, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's kind of a silly kind of thing that has, but when, you know, this is something that we talk about a lot, you know, when you have attachments, it clouds the clarity of your perception. And so if someone is feeling a lot of angst towards leaders that had a lot of trouble, made a lot of mistakes, offended people as well, offended their own God brothers and so on, then you can find that little word and make everything rest on it as if that were Prabhupada changing centuries of disciplic succession without telling us except in that one little insignificant word. No, if he were going to make such a huge change, he would have been explicit about it, and he would have gone into great detail and shared it widely, because he had written so many books teaching the exact opposite. So it's kind of absurd to think that.
And I find, Kostuba, that people who have been betrayed,
Yeah,
been hurt, especially in their early formative years,
yeah, spite,
they have
resentment, and revenge.
an abandoned, parent, that they grow up with the narrative that humans can't be trusted. People will leave you, people will betray you, people are not trustworthy. If that is the running narrative in the psyche, and then you go through your life and you find a person, and she left me or he left me, or you find a spiritual institution where, like, here is this holy person and this holy person and his holy teachings, and he says you should invest love in these teachers, and then all of a sudden the teacher leaves. That is the perfect storm, the perfect recipe for me to drum up my narrative. See, people aren't meant to be trusted. I trusted him and they let me down. And this will be a reoccurring theme in their life. And then they Madonna-ize a person like Prabhupada, because he's not alive anymore. He's perfect. He can't do any wrong. These are the same people. If Prabhupada was here, very often they would end up finding fault with him, because they're looking to be correct. They're looking to say, you know what? People will let you down. I mean, I'm sure you've had people in your life that have looked up to you. I have. That have looked up to you, that have loved you, done anything for you, like practically a disciple or a student or a fan or whatever. And then something happens and you don't even know what it was. You didn't do anything different. And then all of a sudden,
you're responsible.
You are public enemy number one. You are never sincere. You have no good qualities whatsoever.
That happens.
Because they have this narrative running through their head. People are meant to let you down. You can't trust people in this world.
And to fill out the context even a bit more, I think that this is a dynamic that plays out in practically all, religious traditions. That, like, for instance, within Christianity, originally there's the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church was saying the Pope is your kind of, I forget the term that they use, but he's kind of like the intermediary between the self and God, right? Now, we say something similar where we say not one Pope, but that the way the process works is that there's a chain of disciplic succession. There's a chain of guru disciples, and we serve God and access God through them, through their teachings, and by being connected with them in the lineage. Then there's always comes around people later, like Martin Luther, who wants to remove the intermediary, say that that's just man imposing his will in between God and the soul, and they need to be removed. Now, within our tradition, though, it's written into the tradition very explicitly. Like Krishna will say, one who says they're my devotee is not my devotee, but one who's the devotee of my devotee, they're my true devotee. It's like that idea is like, it's very well pronounced and, very much elaborated on in this tradition, that we want to become dasa, 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 anudasa, that we always see there's an intermediary between us and God, that we please God by pleasing the devotees of God, that that's how we connect. It's a very strong part of our tradition and our philosophy. So it doesn't work well to just say you can throw that all out the window. There's so much, so much has been shared by the acharyas of this, as well as the original source texts themselves,
so much
about
history,
the necessity
so much
of the guru and disciple. The Prabhupada didn't throw all that away. Again, Prabhupada was saying his legacy is that he didn't change it. And for someone to come in along and say he changed it all at the last second, and he didn't even really communicate it widely, he just included in this little letter with this one word, henceforth, it's an incredibly weak argument.
Whew, that was
All
good.
right.
That was good. I'm glad we addressed that. I wouldn't even mind if people believed it. But when I come to a spiritual institution, I'm expecting the people to be on their A game, meaning you don't criticize, you don't find fault, you're not, if that's what you
That's
believe,
yeah.
fine. But what I find when I meet people who are into that, they have so much deep-rooted animosity, envy,
Not
jealousy,
everyone
spite.
that I met, but
Not
most of
everybody,
them.
but a
Most of
lot of
yeah.
the people, I can't figure it out. I was like, just believe it then and go on and be a nice devotee.
Yeah,
But
right.
you've got so much hate towards any other guru. They're all fake. Really? Every one of them's fake. Give
And
me
I
a
knew them
break.
personally, and you didn't.
Like I met them. You've never met any. They're all
Yeah.
they're all charlatans. It's like you could tell they've just got us. I don't want to go to a spiritual community to hear people like that.
Me neither.
So do if that's what you believe, do your thing, worship.
I'll respect it from a little bit of a distance.
I'll respect it for yes.
Yeah. Okay.
100 meters out. Okay, mister.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Linda, strike up the band, Linda.
Strike up the music. The band has begun. It's the Pennsylvania polka. Hey, Linda, what are you doing for this holiday weekend?
I'm
me it's not
actually
the
going to
Pennsylvania polka.
Nashville, back to Nashville today. I'm going to see Cindy Lunsford and Steven.
Oh,
Really? That wasn't a
Connections.
rhetorical question. I actually wanted to know. What are you doing,
Oh.
Kastuba? Anyway, tell me.
oh, you rascal.
That sounds great, Linda. Kastuba, what about you? Holiday weekend? Tell me you're
I
going
don't
to
even
get
see it
out
as
of
a
that
holiday.
apartment and do something more than walk around Central Park. I want more from you.
What do you want?
I don't know. Something exciting, something new, something fresh.
No, I got responsibilities, Raghunath. I take care. I'm that kind of guy, all right? I'm going to take care of my responsibilities. I'm on a mission.
From God?
I like to think so.
I like to think so too. I like to think I'm on a mission from God. It helps me wake up in the morning.
All right.